Britain's first serious long-range bomber. It flew thousands of sorties in the final year of the First World War. Engine problems limited its performance, but it shaped early British thinking about strategic bombing for years afterward. A fast, reliable day bomber that gave Britain real striking power in the First World War. Built under license in America too, it hit targets deep in Germany and became one of the most produced Allied aircraft of the war. A pusher-engine fighter bomber that helped end the Fokker scourge over the Western Front. Its forward-mounted gun gave clear firing lines, and it bought vital time for better British designs to reach frontline squadrons during a dangerous period. Britain's first heavy bomber with a wingspan over 100 feet. It struck German naval bases and rail yards at night, proving that large long-range bombers were operationally viable and laying the foundations for all future British heavy bombing doctrine. The improved successor to the O/100, it became the backbone of Britain's dedicated strategic bombing force in 1918. Used across multiple theaters, it carried heavier loads more reliably and was even planned for a mass raid on Berlin. Designed specifically to bomb Berlin from England, it was the largest British aircraft of the First World War. For engines and a 9-man crew made it formidable, but the armistice arrived before it ever dropped a bomb in anger. Famous less for bombing than for adventure, it completed the first non-stop transatlantic flight in 1919. In RAF service, it policed the Empire and tested long-distance routes, bridging the gap between wartime heavy bombing and modern long-range aviation. Faster than every RAF fighter when it appeared in 1925. This day bomber caused genuine embarrassment at the Air Ministry. Its aerodynamic refinement and powerful engine exposed a dangerous performance gap and pushed British manufacturers to develop far better fighter designs. A dependable torpedo and day bomber that served quietly through the late 1920s. It never attracted headlines, but gave crews valuable experience in long-range and low-level operations while the RAF transitioned toward all-metal monoplane designs in the following decade. One of the faster medium bombers of the interwar years, it served with a single RAF squadron through the early 1930s. Crews spoke well of its handling, and it represented a genuine attempt to keep British bomber performance competitive during peacetime. Remembered as the first British bomber with a power-operated nose turret, it arrived in 1934 and changed how designers thought about defensive armament. Only a small number were built, but its influence on future RAF heavy bomber design was significant. The most successful British bomber of the early 1930s, it was faster than the RAF's own fighters when introduced. It spawned numerous variants, trained a generation of pilots, and influenced almost every British aircraft design that followed it into the decade. The RAF's primary light bomber at the outbreak of war, it was modern in 1937, but dangerously slow by 1940. Crews flew it with great courage over France, the North Sea, and the Middle East, suffering severe losses against superior German fighters. Sent to France in 1940. It was outclassed entirely by German fighters and shot down in devastating numbers. Crews flew suicidal low-level missions against advancing enemy columns anyway. Several Victoria Crosses were awarded, the majority of them posthumously, during its brief, brutal campaign. One of the first RAF aircraft to bomb Germany. It was slow and oddly shaped, but dependable. Later it carried paratroopers, dropped SOE agents into occupied Europe, and served with Coastal Command, contributing far more to war than its appearance suggested. Slim and distinctive, the Hampton flew alongside the Wellington and Whitley in early bombing campaigns. Its narrow fuselage cramped crews and limited defensive coverage, but later conversion to torpedo bomber for Coastal Command gave it a more effective second chapter. The aircraft that sustained Bomber Command through the war's hardest years. Its geodesic structure absorbed extraordinary damage, and it served in every theater Britain fought in. More Wellingtons were built than any other British bomber, and crews held it in genuine affection. The first 4-engine heavy bomber in RAF service, it was hampered by a wingspan restriction that limited its operational ceiling. Withdrawn from bombing operations by 1943, it found useful purpose towing gliders and dropping supplies, roles it performed with considerably greater success. Promising an appearance but dangerous in service, its Rolls-Royce Vulture engines failed repeatedly, killing crews over England and Germany. Withdrawn quickly, it was not entirely wasted. Its airframe became a direct foundation for the Lancaster, one of history's greatest bombers. It flew more sorties than any British aircraft in the war, except the Lancaster. Bomber, tanker, glider tug, and SOE transport. It served across every role asked of it. Crews developed fierce loyalty to it despite its never quite matching the Lancaster's fame. The greatest bomber the RAF ever operated. Growing from the failed Manchester, it carried heavier loads further than any rival. It dropped the Dambusters bombs and the Grand Slam. Over half its crews did not survive the war, but the aircraft never failed them. Built from wood, crewed by two, and fast enough to outrun most fighters. It bombed Berlin as a nuisance, marked targets for heavy bombers, and struck Gestapo headquarters at rooftop height. Nothing in the war combined speed, precision, and economy more effectively. Britain's first jet bomber. It entered service in 1951 and flew higher than any interceptor could reach for years. Exported over 30 countries and built under license in America, it served the RAF for over 50 years across numerous conflicts worldwide. The first V bomber, chosen for speed of production while the Vulcan and Victor matured. It carried Britain's first nuclear weapons and bombed Egyptian airfields during Suez. Metal fatigue ended its career abruptly in 1965, far earlier than anyone had planned or expected. Its vast delta wing made it the most striking aircraft the RAF ever flew. It carried Britain's nuclear deterrent through the 1960s, then returned to fame in 1982, flying some of aviation history's longest bombing missions against Argentine forces in the Falklands. The most aerodynamically refined V-bomber, with a graceful crescent wing. After losing its nuclear role, it became a tanker, refueling Vulcans during the Falklands raids and supporting RAF operations for 2 more decades, outlasting its V-bomber siblings in genuine operational usefulness. A Franco-British ground attack aircraft that entered RAF service in 1974. It flew effectively in the Gulf War with low losses, later serving over the Balkans and in Sierra Leone. Many felt it was retired too early when the RAF withdrew it in 2007. The RAF's primary strike aircraft for 3 decades. Its variable sweep wings allowed fast, low-level flight in all weather. It flew in the Gulf, Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya, introducing precision-guided weapons to RAF operations at scale before retiring in 2019. The world's first operational jump jet fought in the Falklands from ships, then served across Bosnia, Kosovo, and Afghanistan. Continuously updated through its life. It was controversially retired in 2010, a decision widely criticized as premature by pilots, commanders, and defense analysts alike. Originally a fighter, it evolved into a capable strike aircraft carrying Pei-Wei bombs, Brimstone missiles, and Storm Shadow cruise missiles. It flew combat missions over Libya in 2011 and remains in frontline RAF service in 2026, still being upgraded and operationally active.